trying to have half a glass a day, right? Are you trying to put a little teaspoon of honey in your coffee in the morning just to sweeten it up a little bit and that's it? Or are you trying to have, I don't know, honey on everything because that's paleo, because I can find it in nature, right? So think about those two questions as we come back to that topic towards the end of today, is where am I versus where I want to be, and how much are we talking about? Okay, so let's really start to break things down. Let's take the macro micronutrients on. Do we kind of understand that piece of it? What a macronutrient, micronutrient is? So we're going to start to break things down. We're going to start with meat. Okay? We've all heard of meat. What's the primary, or what macronutrients, micronutrients, whatever, what does meat offer us?
Protein.
Protein. What else?
You said it.
Fat. And the last one, this pretty much applies to everything, just so you guys know, micronutrients. Okay? Pretty much everything we eat, it's going to have some sort of micronutrients in it, especially if we're eating real foods. The earth is abundant with them. Okay? So protein, fat, and carbs. Breaking it down, protein is the building block of our body. A lot of times we think of protein, we think of those muscles getting bigger, even if it's not even just getting bigger, that soreness we get, repairing our muscle tissue after a nice strong CrossFit workout, something like that. But there's so much more that protein does for you. It's the building block of your entire body, other than the excess body fat that we're storing. Everything in your body is built on proteins, and proteins are key in hormone function. They're key in your metabolic processes, so that's converting energy. You need proteins. Proteins turn on genes and turn off genes. So they actually, proteins, other than just building you up, play a factor in how you look, things like that. So protein is a very important part of our diet. And then we talk about two types of protein, and this is kind of getting to understand why this, because I know through questions that have been asked, there's questions about vegetarianism and things like that. So why meat? We have what are called complete and incomplete proteins. Our complete proteins are going to come from animal sources, and our incomplete proteins are going to come from plant sources. So we have animal and plant. So what does that mean, complete and incomplete? I could just leave it right there and say, I told you to eat complete proteins, right? Why do we want complete proteins? Well, there's a roughly, I think, not roughly, there's 22 amino acids that exist in the body that we're made of and we need to function, 8 of which we cannot synthesize inside our own body. So in order to be a healthy, functioning person, you need those other 8, but you have to bring them in from an external source. So many of them, your body can kind of take this and that and make it, right? But for those complete proteins, what we need is we need to consume it. And so animal products are pretty much our only way to get that. So that's why we need complete proteins. It is very hard to get complete proteins from other sources. You have to be extremely creative in what you do as a vegetarian to do that. So it is possible. It's okay. Another great thing is for that would be maybe a protein supplement. Back to supplements, and I'm not trying to say eat them all the time, but a protein, nice, clean, good, high-quality protein supplement might be a good idea to get a little extra, but I wouldn't want you drinking 4 or 5 shakes a day just to get your protein in at every meal. Okay? So complete proteins come from our animal friends. Now, back to switching over to the fats. So that's pretty much our protein. Now going into the fats here, fat is essentially an energy source. Okay? Fat is energy. It insulates our organs, regulates vitamins in our body, or vitamin regulation, and hormone manufacturing throughout our body. There's 3 types of fat. So we'll come here and start talking about fat. We've got saturated, monounsaturated, poly. So we've all heard of those terms. Polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, saturated fat. Oh my God, saturated fat's the devil, don't ever eat that. That's what causes heart disease and things like that. Wrong. There's no actual evidence to corroborate that. That's more just a theory, okay? Because fat makes you fat. No, that's not right. So what we want to say is, when we put them in this order, from the bottom up, is really its stability, the stability of the fat. Okay? So your mono and polyunsaturated fats are going to be liquid fats. They're going to be less stable. They're going to be fats you can look at. Your saturated fat is going to be that animal fat. It's going to be things you can see it, the fat on it that you're consuming. The stability of it is really, it's how prone is it to oxidation? How unstable is it? Right? And so we don't really want a lot of oxidation going on in our bodies all the time. That can lead to cancers and other diseases, things like that. But that doesn't mean stay over here, and now I'm telling you exactly the opposite of what the FDA tells you and USDA tells you, is and only eat saturated fat. What you want is roughly to have a healthy blend, 30, a third of each in your diet. And back to what I had said before about the micronutrients, what's the best way to do that without going and trying to figure out how much fat and different types of fat is in every type of protein source or meat source that I eat? Just rotate your meats, right? Have fish a couple times a week, have chicken a couple times a week, have beef or pork or whatever. Just rotate what you eat. And you're going to be fine in there. So, back to, we're talking about meat, so now is that time we're going to talk about the fish oil like we said. So fish oil, whether you get it from fish or you get it from a supplement, okay, what we're trying to do is we're trying to boost our omega-3s. Trying to boost that. And so we look at omega-6, O6, that's inflammatory. O3s are generally referred to as anti-inflammatory. So there's a book out there called, I think it's called Silent Inflammation or something like that, or The Silent Killer. It's by Dr. Barry Sears, who wrote the Zone Diet. We'll talk a little bit about the Zone here in a minute. But inflammation in the body, what he's linked to, and other people have corroborated it, inflammation in the body, especially that silent inflammation, is what leads to a lot of our syndrome X diseases, hypertension, diabetes, cancer, heart attack, things like that, right? Things that none of us want any of those, I would assume. And so we need to keep that inflammation low. We can't have no omega-6s for two reasons. One, you need them. And two, you're not going to avoid them. They're there, right? And so if we're eating conventional meat, meaning it's factory processed meat, not the best living conditions for the animals, the things that kind of make us want to say, yeah, I might want to be a vegetarian, just because I don't like the way you're treating that animal, you're probably gonna have higher amounts of omega-6s in your diet because those animals aren't feeding on grass and things like that, those dark leafy greens and everything like that. They're feeding on grain and they're feeding on other things that are going to raise that and that aren't in our prescription. So the answer to that, in my mind, I'm not getting into the political side of it. The answer to that, if you're going to eat that, like myself, I can't necessarily afford to go find range-free grass-fed beef and afford it and feed a family of 5 and whatnot. So I'm just going to stick with leaner cuts of meat. Okay? There's enough fat in the meat that I don't necessarily need to eat the saturated fat that I can see. But if there's only a little bit, I'm not going to cut it off. Okay? Does that make some sense? Now, you're going to have a way better balance here, and we're going to talk about what balance we're looking for. You're going to have a way better balance here if you're eating that really high-quality, high-grade animal. Okay? And I encourage you too, if you can afford it, and one day when I can afford it, I guarantee that's what I'll do. So the ratio we're kind of looking for is roughly a 3 to 2 to 1, or 3 or 2 to 1, 6 to 3 balance. Okay, so we need more 6s than we need 3s. And it's not even a set amount. Like, we can figure out what your zone block recommendation is. Like I said, we'll talk about zone later. That's really telling you exactly how much food to eat. I can break down protein, fat, carbs, tell you consume this much, give you a number, a tangible thing to target. We're not really doing that with fish oil. We're trying to keep this balance. Okay? So for every 2 or 3 grams of omega-6 I include in my diet, I want 1 of omega-3s. just to kind of keep things in balance, keep things in check, so that I stay within that. Let's see. Do we have any questions about fish oil supplements, anything like that? I will tell you, I would recommend a fish oil supplement that's not a single animal fish oil supplement, like salmon oil, krill oil, things like that. Those aren't bad, but way you could go better is finding a multi-source fish oil.
Isn't omega-3 in like flaxseed?
Yep, there's plenty of
And,
superfoods that have it in there.
Hemp seeds?
Yep, so it is prevalent in some seeds, but that was something. It's a quick answer, something we're going to talk about later. Macadamia nuts, walnuts also higher in omega-3s. That's only relative to other nuts and seeds. They don't even come close to going and eating fish. Okay, so relative to other seeds, they are high in omega-3s. So they're a better choice than other seeds. Nuts and seeds are kind of up there in what we're consuming, but I'm saying this is like the bulk of your diet, and then we start to play with everything else. So once again, rotate your seeds, rotate your nuts, right? Don't laugh. Come on.
You guys all wanted to see start.
Come on, man. All right.
I'm thinking you were.
So,
I said you caused and everybody started laughing.
I caught myself. All right. So we've talked about meat. Do we have any other questions about meat? Why is it important in the body? What we should do to consume it? The kind of the theme of the day is going to be rotate your food. Rotate your meats, rotate your veggies, rotate your nuts. I said it again. We're just going to move on to vegetables.
Nuts will come back up later.
Nuts will come back up later and we'll rotate them again. So vegetables. What do veggies offer us?
Vitamins and minerals.
Vitamins and minerals. So we got micronutrients. Carbs. And we're going to leave it at that, although some oils are vegetable oils. We're going to leave it at that. We're going to leave the carbs and micronutrients. We're going to talk about vegetable oils here in a little bit. Okay? So what is our primary, what is the primary thing that consuming vegetables gives us? Carbs, which we said carbs were what? Well, we didn't say, we said what fat was. Same thing. Energy. Okay? Energy. So carbs are energy. Now, here's a weird concept to throw out. You don't need to eat a single carb to be healthy, to live. You don't need to eat a single piece of plant life, right? You can get energy from fat. Plants, veggies, give us a much more efficient form of energy that gets into our bloodstream faster, things like that, so that's better for working out. We have to go through a whole oxidation process to break that fat down and get it into the muscle and use that. But as an example, Native Alaskans that are still hunter-gatherers and whatnot, they eat a diet that I believe, it might have the numbers flipped. It's 60-40. I think it's 60 fat and 40 protein, but it could be the other way around. I'm pretty sure it's 60% fat and 40% protein. I left 0% for carbs, right? Because you don't need to consume carbs, you don't need to consume veggies in order to live. Now, we say, okay, well, what do they look like? What is their health like? Things like that. The only problem that Native Alaskans, Eskimos seem to have is a higher incidence of osteoporosis because they're not getting the calcium that they need. Now, they don't have milk, they're not milking cows, things like that. They don't have calcium supplements, they're hunter-gatherers, so they're not going and purchasing that at Whole Foods. The better source of calcium that we can get, even better than milk, and when we talk about milk, is a lot of your dark leafy greens, a lot of your vegetables. And so they're not getting that. But heart disease, all these other things that are linked to saturated fats, and those are some saturated fats they're eating because they're killing whales and walrus and things like that, and that's what they're eating. It's all blubber, right? So while we need it, I'm telling you, as CrossFitters, as people, we have access to it, micronutrients. I'm just saying it's not necessary for life. So just to kind of understand that. Justin, you said it. When we eat vegetables, what does it break down to? It gives us energy. How does it give us energy?
Oh, well, that's, or no.
Sugar.
Yeah, sugar.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, energy, the energy it gives us
Tired.
is